Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. And today we're actually going to be taking a look at two cards together. And that's because they are very, very similar, but very different at the same time. I know that's confusing, but we will get to it. And anyway, we were looking at two cards from Gainward. And they are the Gainward Phoenix, Go Like Hell Golden Sample. It's a bit of a mouthful, and I seem to remember that these used to be like separate brands or like segments back in the past, where you get like a golden sample and then there was another one that was a Go Like Hell. So for me, being an old fuddy-duddy, this is a little bit confusing. But anyway, it is the Gainward. We're going to call it the GLH, the Go Like Hell, but I've got the 1070 and the 1080. Now I have to look at the prices, but the 1070 is $455.99 and the 1080 is $674.99. So they're up there with the expensive cards when it comes to 1070s and 1080s. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring you in, we'll have a close look at the cards, and you really do want to stick around for the performance stuff on these. Okay, so we've got the two cards, and there is very little to spot between them actually. The real main difference is the power. The 1070 only has an 8-pin, the 1080 has an 8 and a 6. So with that in mind, we'll just look at the 1080. So, right, first of all we have the cooler. You've got this, and it can come off actually, so you can take it off and spray it if you want. Could be a good project. Remember that for later on in the video. You've got the gold and the red, and it's probably easier if I zoom. There we go. You can see that they can be removed fairly easily, which could be quite cool. Round the back, it's normal 1080, so we've got 3 display ports, a HDMI, and then you've got your DVI as well. While we are looking at that side, you can see that it's bigger than 2 slots. I'd say it's almost 3. It's only just shy of 3. So keep that in mind if you're planning on running more than one, and check the slots on your motherboard. You're going to need at least 2 slots between the next one. I would go for 3 though, just so that you've got a little bit more breathing room. You can see that you've got a quite a big, beefy cooler really, but there's not that many heat pipes when you see inside. It's a big, beefy cooler, but it's not, well, it is fairly basic. It's not like mega and over designed. You do have a BIOS switch so that you can flick between if you do want to mess around with a custom clock where you manually set it in the BIOS rather than doing it with software. No lights or anything on the back. This doesn't have any writing on it, but the 1070 does. I don't know whether that's because this is a press sample, because they do have little stickers on saying promotion item not for sale. But it doesn't mean that they're like specially tweaked or anything like we've had in the past. It's just because it doesn't have a serial number. So that's instead of the serial number that's on it. So, but the most important thing to look at is here. And that is this section actually lights up. And it does go red, green and blue. And it's meant to change with temperature, but it doesn't, sadly. And I will show you a little section about that in a moment. But other than that, like I said, it's just a big, chunky cooler. Right, let's talk about the light. So with the light, essentially when you first turn it on, you do get a flash of the red, green, blue. But then once it's powered up, it does just stay green. Now I've looked for software on the CD, there's nothing there. I've used the drivers from the Gainward website. Our one just stays green all the time. I'm not sure whether it's because it's like thermally related or something like that, but I can't find a way to actually change it. And it's never actually changed for me either. The only time that you do see the red and the blue is when you first start the system up. And the rest of the time, it does just stay green. You're going to have to make up your mind whether you like the red and the green together, but as I did say in this bit, these do actually unscrew. So, you know, maybe that's what the answer is, and just have like a black cooler. You tell me. But anyway, let's move on. Okie dokie, so we will get down to the nitty gritty, and if you don't know about the 1070 and the 1080, when they come from NVIDIA, the only real difference from them is the 1070 has GDDR5 and the 1080 has GDDR5X, which is more bandwidth, faster, blah, 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 blah. Now these ones, they've obviously both got 8GB of VRAM, but the 1070, the memory comes in at 8,500 megahertz, and the 1080 actually comes in at 10,500 megahertz. We won't worry about the base clock, we'll just go with the boost, and the boost is 1885 for the 1080, and then 1873 for the 1070. Now we've had a lot of discussions about overclocking with the Pascal cards. Now the thing is that is their clock. But then they've got a thing called GPU Boost 3, which does the overclocking for you. You can disable it if you really want to, and then overclock it yourself. But the best way I can put it is it's not that there isn't any overclocking, it's that they've actually got a bit of software that just does it for you now. Whereas before you could spend time and try and offset the boost so that you'd start the GPU Boost 3 that little bit higher. Honest to God, now it's got so good. I've now tested, what, 5, 6 of these cards, and I'm looking at getting maybe 25, 30 megahertz more with a manual clock than I do with a GPU Boost 3. And for a reviewer that has to spend time going through and running benchmarks, making sure it's stable, making sure it doesn't fall over, for 25 megahertz, the actual, it's not worth it at the end of the day when you can just leave it at stock and it overclocks it for you. So it's not that there isn't overclocking, it's just they've come up with a way that does it so well now, you don't actually need to bother. Now I know for all the tweakers out there, that's bad news. You can still play with the memory though, and you can still bump your scores up. The more resolution that you've got, so if you're running 1440p or 4K, the higher up that range that you get, the more the memory will start to play in. But go careful with memory, because you can overclock it too much and then your scores will fall off a cliff at the end. So you can push it too far. Again, it's why we just kind of go click and collect and go with it, because like I said, it's just got too good. But anyway, right, to prove a point, the boost is 1873 for the 1070 and 1885 for the 1080. Then GPU Boost 3 kicks in, and it then goes up to 20,500 for the 1070 and 20,500 for the 1080 as well. When we talk about memory speeds, they're both pretty like bonkers, to be honest with you. It's like, yeah, they're amazing. So you can see all the information there. And what we also do now is we've been running a average test. So if you have a look slightly further down, you can see that we've got an average, and that the 1080 was running at 1970 as an average, and then the 1070 was running at 2021 as an average score. Now we do the average score because there is all that talk about them getting too hot and going up and down all over the place. Actually it can have something to do with heat, but it wasn't as directly linked to heat as people were making out with the Founders Edition card. Essentially, with benchmarks and games, there are portions in the game where they quite literally don't need 100% of the core to be utilised. So essentially, it's just a way of them saving power. That's it. That's what the up and down is. I'm sure at some point someone's going to work out a way that you can turn that off and it will just boost right to the maximum all the time. And it will be something that we can go in and tweak around with and see if it does make any performance difference. But for now, that's what it is. There was all that big hoo-ha, and to be honest with you, it was really over nothing. And that's not me, kind of like protecting them or anything like that. And it's not what they've told me. It's just what the chats I've had with actual vendors has been about, and them explaining what the technology was actually put in place for. So it's not something that's happening by mistake or because it's getting hot. That's the way it's designed. Anyway, So talking about temperatures, that brings me so cleanly on that we can have a look at the temperatures on these. And quite literally, the 1080 was 69 degrees and the 1070 was 67 degrees. They weren't the coolest that we've had, but the critical thing with these is the fans don't even spin till they get to 60 degrees. And now we've got that big meaty cooler, and the idea is when it's on your desktop, and to be honest with you, within like a certain period of time with things like Unigine and some of the lower end games, the fans weren't even spinning. And that's also generally the point where the card's not even really being stressed out too much either. But you can, once they do kick in and you get over that 60 degree mark, they are incredibly quiet. You could not hear these running in the rig at all. So, you know, it's one of those ones where the big meatiness of the cooler has done it some favours here, being able to take that threshold of the passiveness up, but also keep the actual RPMs and everything down quite low as well, and to keep it within a 10 degrees kind of window for, you know, max heat. And we really did push these as well between max heat and actually the fan spinning in the first place. I think is, you know, it's a bit mental. So then we move on to the benchmarks. Now with the benchmarks, we've been shouting about 3D Mark Firestrike Ultimate for quite a while. It's the top end one. It's the one that's 4K, stresses them out the most. But when we do talk about benchmarks, the one thing that I can say is please do go and have a look on the OC3D website where we do the old 3D Mark 11. We do the 3D Mark Vantage. We do other games. We've got 11 games in our pack at the moment, and when things calm down and people stop arguing and releasing more and more and more cards, we are going to add some more games in. But we've got 11 games in total at the moment. Some of those games we are testing in DX11 and DX12, and we also test in 1080p, 1440p and 4K on every game and every DX package. So we do a lot of testing to be able to bring this to the table for you. But first things first is, and this is pretty much how it's going to be throughout the whole thing, because I'm going to show you the graphs, but I'm actually going to just flash them up quick so that you can just have a look, and then we're going to get to the conclusion really quickly. So 3D Mark Firestrike Ultimate. 1080, it's the fastest of the 1080s. 1070, it's the fastest of the 1070s. So it does that. Then we move on to Sleeping Dogs. It's literally the fastest 1080, the fastest 1070. You can slow these down. I will show you, you know, you can pause. I'll show you zoom in so that you can have a better look as well. When we move on to Ashes of the Singularity, same thing. Fastest 1080, fastest 1070. It just whittles through incredibly quickly. So I'll leave that with you to make your mind up. Don't forget, if you want to have a more in-depth look, you can go and have a look on the Overclock 3D website. But we're now into the thick of the conclusion, where I will start by saying Performance Award. Now, Performance Award, they are quite expensive, but then let's face it, the Pascal series graphics cards are quite expensive. But the performance of these is absolutely outstanding. Quickest 1080 and 1070 that we've tested. We have just had a driver refresh, which I'm sure some of the other vendors are going to be going, oh yeah, it's because of the driver. But we're going to be testing other cards, so we'll see. I genuinely think it's because of the high average boost clock on these, and we've obviously got a huge boost on the memory as well. It's these cards have got the fastest memory that we've tested so far. The cooler's doing an immensely good job as well. Really, they do go like hell, but I personally think they look like hell as well. They don't really, it doesn't mesh. The gold and the red I could live with, but when you stick the light on the side, which does just sit at green the whole time, I think it was a bit of a mistake. If it lit up red, then it would tie in with the red down the side a little better maybe. But I do think that we're in a period now where, I know it does go red, green, blue, but it's not RGB in the sense if you've got the full control of the spectrum. I do think that you should at very least be able to change the colour yourself, and they have no software for you to be able to enable this into just a red, just a green, or just a blue. That would be an absolute minimum for me. I personally think that it may have been better if the red and the gold was maybe even just black, because then if you had the red LED or the green LED, it wouldn't stand out so much. But it's very aesthetics based for me with this. Now, we've obviously given them the performance award because their performance is there. But if you are looking at buying these, you are going to have to make peace with the way that they look. A lot of people out there don't give a monkeys and will just put it in, fit it, forget it. But with cases now having windows and aesthetics playing a much bigger part in our enthusiast-driven market of gaming and sharing with our friends and sharing online with social media like Instagram. There is Tiny Tom Logan Instagram, by the way, link is underneath. There is that is so much more driven now that I think that having iffy aesthetics, just, you know, it's going to get you a slap on the wrist. So if you don't like the way they look and that's going to bother you, then I would quite literally say go and buy something else and just live with the marginal performance difference. But if you've not got a side panel window, or your case is under your desk and you don't give a monkeys, and you just want to buy something that you can fit and forget and is going to perform well, then these definitely do that. So that's pretty much it. It's a quick smash through. We've got the job done. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these as well. Do you like the red and the gold? Does the light, you know, I'm not going to say offend you, but bother you? We would love to hear all that underneath. We would also love to hear your thoughts in the Overclock 3D forums, where when we do every one of these reviews, we have a dedicated forum thread for people to discuss what they look as well. Also, if you've got a 1070 or a 1080, we would actually love to see your build. Go and have a look on the project logs. If you're doing a dedicated project log, we are going through and you're going to be doing a build. We would love to see a photo build. Or if you finished a rig and you just want to show it off, there's the rig gallery. So go and take a look, peeps. I would love to see your rigs and I would love to have a chit chat with you. But for now, at least, it's the Gainward Phoenix Go Like Hell 1070 and 1080s that have just won the OC 3D Performance Award, but never going to win any award for the aesthetics with these, sadly. But for now, at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you out. Ding! Is back! Yes!